and I can kind of do it in my Silouan way. I don't know if this is going to come across good or not. I just thought of it as we're sitting here. This
Okay.
this might come across good, but it might not. But so we'll just give it a try. You know, growing up as a kid in Indiana, most young boys in some way dreamed of basketball. You know, when I was a senior and I got told by the coach, you're going to be captain of the basketball team, man, you were on cloud nine. Back then, that was when Indiana was one class of basketball. We'd have 3,000-4,000 people at a basketball game. You'd have 8,000-10,000 people at sectionals. Well, you're 17, 18 years old, and you're the one going out to center court. It just makes you feel like this. It makes you feel like you can do anything. Now, unfortunately for me, I was a 6'3" forward. And there's not a lot of 6'3" forwards in college basketball. So one of my first disappointments in life was when the only place that wanted me to play were, you know, really small schools or junior colleges or whatnot, and I ended my career. But I still knew what it felt like to be on top, and I wanted to keep that going. I think that's one reason joining the Marine Corps was so attractive to me. I saw it as a way to continue that progression up the ladder of being on top, of being tough. Now, the funny thing is, until I got to Vanderbilt, I thought I knew what tough was. I didn't really know what tough was. And one day, I was walking down my freshman dorm, and there was this recruiting poster from the Marine Corps. And it was a picture of a Marine standing next to an F-18. And in that moment, it hit me. What could be cooler? What could be tougher than to be the person in that picture? And if I was as tough as I thought I was, that's what I would go do. So I grabbed it off the wall. I didn't want anyone else to see it, steal the spot. That's how I was thinking. Went down to the recruiter, walked into his office. I had that poster with me. I said, I want to be this. To be a pilot, you had to be an officer. So I had to finish college. It's not like you can just say, I want to do that, and they let you. So in the Marine Corps, they have what's called Officers Candidate School in the summers while you're in college. You go off to Quantico, Virginia, and really it's weeding out the wannabes. And primarily you're just learning to have that mindset of a Marine. I can overcome anything. One of the ways they did it, all kinds of physical things as you can imagine. Obstacle courses in the woods, fighting with each other, all kinds of things. And as you're going through that, they're keeping track of how you do, they're ranking you. And very early on, they make you aware of this award you can get at the end of this 6-month school. And it's kind of like, like the physical fitness toughest guy award. Everybody kind of, the nickname everybody had for it was like the Iron Man award, kind of like the toughest person there. So, I was by no means the fastest dude or the strongest, but for some reason, I wanted to be known as the toughest. And so when everybody else would hit the rack, go to sleep, I'd get up in the middle of the night, I'd do push-ups, sit-ups. A couple of times I'd sneak out, run if we had a test coming up. By the end of that 6 months, they told me at the time I was the first officer to go through that in almost 2 years that had a perfect score on everything. Everything you could had a top score. There was someone faster than me, there was someone stronger than me, but I won. One thing about going down that path, in flight school to be a pilot, there's so much time that goes by. 6 months at Quantico, and then you go to flight school, and it's all this ground school and all this stuff. And so it's a long time before you even begin to get a feeling of what it's going to be like to fly. And I think most people that have flown will tell you that the first time you solo is just an amazing experience. And you're in there for the first time and you're nervous, you're a little scared. I'm going to take off, but am I going to get it back on the ground? And you get up there, and it's not what you expect because, at that point you don't really know anything. But you're flying through the air, and to me at least more than anything is other than the drone of the engine, it's how quiet it is and how peaceful it is. And you see the clouds and you see birds flying by and you're by yourself and it's just you and you're totally in control and the earth is below you and there's like a peace that comes to it. Now, I didn't feel it at the time, but I think there's also a danger that comes to it, and it was with me, was that you really do feel like I'm in control. I am master of the universe. It was just a routine training mission. And our jet caught fire, Oceana, Virginia. Had to eject right at the end of the runway. Don't even remember a lot of it. Most of it, people told me after the fact. 1 minute, I'm this big, bad, toughest guy in the room. Next minute, I'm in a hospital. Didn't seem real. I was too tough for that. I was incredulous. I wanted to get up out of the bed. I wanted to walk around. At one point, they told me not to walk around, and I started walking around, and they came in with like this look of fear in their face. What are you doing? Your back is broke. Oh, that's why my back hurts so much. Then I find out my instructor had been killed, and it was weird. I didn't act like I thought I would. I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but it was like in your head, well, they told you people were going to die. What did you think? This identity that I had cultivated over my whole life of being tough. If you're just tough enough, if you just suck it up, you're going to be okay. People that get broke are weak. That's what happens to other people. But now, I'm away from Marines. I'm in this hospital. I'm depressed. I'm worrying about, am I really that tough? As I get depressed and I worry about it, I don't PT as much. I physically get a little bit more out of shape. As I physically get a little more out of shape, I get more depressed. I look at those pill bottles piling up on my bedside table and I go, well, who would take those? A loser would take those. And if I didn't have a doctor's appointment, my normal day would be I would get up, I'd go to this corner drugstore where I got beef jerky and Mountain Dew, which I kind of subsisted off of. I'd come home, I'd take my pill cocktail, made me feel like I was floating in bed all day. I'd float in bed all day, and at night, I'd do one of two things. I'd either put a gun to my head, or I'd go out partying, making things worse. And the most unbearable part of it was time. So many times I would be lying there in bed and my head would feel like it was going to explode with just pain and stress and anxiety and all the mistakes I'd made in life and all the bad things would just go over and over and over in my head. And I'd feel like I'd been lying in that bed for hours. And I look over at the clock and like 5 minutes had gone by. And in that moment, I would literally say to myself, I can't do this. If that's 5 minutes, I can't do another night. I can't do another day. And then compounding that, the pain I was in from my back, the guilt I felt, the shame I felt. Who am I going to be when I'm not a Marine anymore? I'm not that guy in the poster. I'm the guy that didn't become that guy in the poster. And then you question everything. Am I as tough as I thought I was? I guess I wasn't really tough. I guess it was just all an illusion. I guess it was just all in my head. Heck, I can remember having moments I think it didn't happen. I didn't live. My whole life wasn't real. And then I got a call one day, and it was this new psychiatrist at the hospital. She wanted to meet with me. And I walk in. I wasn't very happy about being in an Air Force base, being a young Marine. Thank you, Air Force, by the way. You saved my life. But this is how I felt at the time. She seemed really old, which now seems really young. If you're this old, you're a puppy, trust me. But she was probably 35, which to me in my 20s seemed like really old. But she saved my life. All my Marine friends were telling me to suck it up, it'll be okay. And she spent a lot of time just wanting to know who I was. Who was that little boy? Who was that guy in high school? Who was this kid that wanted to be a Marine? And as I felt known by her, that distance between us evaporated. And I really began to heal when I came to see her that it wasn't, Marine, Air Force. It wasn't, psychiatrist, patient. It was just, Dr. Lanzano and me. And that's it. We're having a conversation. And I felt safe. I felt accepted. I felt like I could tell her anything. And she'd listen and she'd have empathy. And then, as I found happens in life, when I was able to do that in a way, what she did was allow me to figure out where I was going to go next. So the day I got disability discharged from the Marine Corps, I had sent my guitar, a couple of boxes of stuff back to my parents. It was just me, my motorcycle, a backpack, and I took off. Now, that's not really the end of my healing because I wasn't healed. The truth of the matter is I had an angel on one shoulder and I had a devil on the other shoulder. The devil was telling me, ride off into some magnificent place out west. I remember that was my vision. Go to this magnificent place where no one's going to find you. Put a bullet in your head. The other part of me was saying, just ride until you got a reason to live. And at one place I'd always wanted to go, I hadn't been yet, was like the Upper West. The Badlands, Mount Rushmore, Yellowstone. So I thought I could head up there before winter set in and then head back down south, maybe see the Grand Canyon. So I take off on my bike, and as I'm taking off, I go through Bloomington, say goodbye to some people I'd met there, and I see this girl that we'd become friends. And I tell her what I'm doing, and she says, well, that's funny. She said, I was going to take the semester off to go to Colorado to see some family. And I look at her and I go, well, you know what? You should come with me. We'll have more fun. And she says, okay, I'll do it. The funny thing is when I look back at my life and I got to do a lot of cool stuff, that is number one. Just being free, figuring out who you are, falling in love with somebody. That trip was the beginning of what today is almost 22 years of marriage, coming up pretty soon from now. 9 kids. Yeah, you heard that right. And we are a tribe. Let me tell you, we are not just a family, we are a tribe. I'm talking to people recovering from addiction, if I'm talking to people in law enforcement, other first responders, veterans, I'll say, you know what? It's not just me who's here. Because every morning, my wife gets the kids and they pray. And they pray for the good that we want to come out of this. And I know they are doing that. And then when I come home and I tell them the people that I met and the stories I was told, they're part of it. There's as much part of it as me. Couldn't do it otherwise. Couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I think the hardest thing for me when I speak and I teach about it, I don't really want to talk about suicide. I want to talk about life. In a lot of ways, suicide is as simple as a math equation. Death becomes more attractive and valuable to you than life. But when you can convince somebody life can have greater value, when you can convince them there's a way and they want to live, that's when you begin to overcome those thoughts. But you know what? They're kind of always there. That's how it is in my experience. Because, there's still nights I'll wake up and I don't even know where it comes from and the pressure's unbearable. And I'll be awake and I'll just have this thought on my head, man, somebody put a bullet in my head, I can't take it. But in that moment, I think about my wife, I think about my kids, I think about what I get to do, and it's okay, and I move forward. And it doesn't keep me from living. Life is what makes people want to overcome not being here. What I tell people at my events is when you're at that point, it can be an opportunity, and here's why. Because if you got a gun to your head like I did, if you're thinking about ways to end your pain, what do you got to lose to try something to live?
This is wicked cool, man. Hey, who's gonna climb up the rocks next? Here, all right, climb up. We'll see Maximus climb up. Here.
Perched on a rock.
Very carefully.
No, Dad, guys, don't come down. I'm coming.
Oh, that's a move. Oh, that's a move. Uh-oh, that's a good one, Gabe. What are you doing?
You know, people ask me, you know, the Air Force psychiatrist when I was at Wilford Hall, what was it that she did that helped you begin to heal? I hear it a lot. She taught me that who I was not just Marine. I had this label I gave myself. I'm tough. I'm the toughest guy in the room. That illusion got shattered, and then I felt like I was left with nothing. And now my only label was broken. And she showed me that didn't have to be my label. It began with talking about that little boy who liked to write in a diary. A couple of nights after we had that conversation, I still wasn't well. I'm in a coffee shop, and I started to have this hallucination. Now, one of my triggers, a trigger is just a bad memory that seared in your brain. And for years, one of my triggers was the weather, because my crash was when it was like hot and stormy outside and whatnot. And so for years after, the right humidity, right heat, you know, right clouds in the sky, I feel myself getting anxious and nervous. So I'm in this coffee shop, and I start feeling that way. And all of a sudden, it was like the storm's breaking out in front of me. And in that moment, I think to myself, okay, what do I do? Well, I could do what I would normally do, which is go back to my room and get the gun I kept and put it to my head. Or, what would that little boy do? What would that little boy that, you know, me and the doctor had talked about? He'd write something, wouldn't he? So I asked the waitress for something to write with. I grabbed a napkin and I said this poem almost as quickly as I'm gonna say it to you. Took a storm to crack the mortar, the stone the aged clay, the walls I'd built to shield myself from rains I feared to face. Took a storm to clear the rubble, the remnants of my home, to find the lost foundation poured before I dwelt alone. And today, I think I'll swim. I think I'll swim. I think I'll live. I don't want to die. And it meant living. When I was at my darkest moment, you think I thought there was a tribe out there waiting for me? You think I thought there was someone out there who was going to love me? You think I even had a glimpse of the life I have today? It's why if you want to help a loved one, if you want to help a friend, if you want to help someone in your community, you got to help them build a life.
Yeah, my dad's my hero. He's been my idol since, I was little. He just means the world to me. And I'm super proud of him. And when he's proud of me, that's just the ultimate reward. So, I just absolutely love my dad. He's everything.
Anyone can be broken, but this is the most important thing. Anyone can live. Anyone can find hope.